episode of the Website 101 podcast, live lunch bites on YouTube. Hooray.
Woo!
Hi,
Hey,
Sean.
Amanda.
Hey, Mike. Yeah.
Is your microphone close to your face?
Nope.
Now it is.
We can still hear you. It just sounded a little bit distant. That's all.
Now we can't hear
now
you
she's
at
gone.
all.
Now you're. Oh, the thing got jimmied. Uh-oh, this is some technical issues.
We can
happens.
blame Mike for this.
Yeah, sorry.
There. Is that better?
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
There.
I hear you.
I hit the mute button because that's something that
It happens.
that's a user error right there.
Yeah,
So-
something we
Sorry
all
to
have to
cut
deal
you
with.
You were introducing the show there a moment ago. Sorry about that.
This is how Amanda messes things up. This is not at all unknown or untypical. Website 101 podcast, YouTube live. We call it Lunch Bites. It happens on the first and third Wednesday of every month. Hello, Sean and Mike.
Hello, Amanda.
There's my recap.
Nice. How's everybody doing? How are you guys? How have you been?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
I'm good.
Do you guys remember last week or last week, 2 weeks ago, I talked about how I had started using Vite on one project for a new client, and I wasn't sure yet. Okay, well, the project does have some issues that it crashes Docker on me, and I'm not sure if it's something in their setup or my computer, or it's like there's a conflict somewhere. But when it works, which it does work most of the time, one thing that I really like about it is if I'm doing stuff with Sprig, you guys are both familiar with Sprig in Craft. It's that
Haven't used
plugin
it,
that,
but yeah.
yeah, it's a plugin that is a wrapper for HTMX. So it allows you to do server-side refreshes and things like that. When I'm using Vite, the hot reloading works when I'm doing Sprig stuff. But when I'm using Laravel Mix, it doesn't do the hot reloading because there's some sort of CORS issue, cross-origin resource thing, because it's using a domain is localhost 3000, and then the actual URL is site.ddev. So that's one thing I really like, is that I don't have to sit there and manually refresh the browser. And when it refreshes, it's really good. It's nice and fast. I like it a lot. So I'm not sure.
I always wondered. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm not sure when I'll migrate, but I'm now considering migrating from Mix to Vite.
Now you're using Vite in a craft site, so you're using that plugin that you have to do.
Yes,
is
you
that
have
right?
to use that plugin as far as I understand it.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't set it up. I'm just using, it was already configured. All I had to do is, run the npm install and the commands. I didn't have to do any of the setup.
I always wonder how much faster it is than, like, I use browser sync as part of my Laravel Mix thing, and it reloads, I don't know, in a fraction of a second. I find it hard to believe it would be that much faster, but would it be? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't feel like it's perceptibly faster. I have no real problems with Mix. The only advantage to me right now for Vite is that when I do Sprig stuff, it just works. I don't have to manually go and reload the browser.
I saw that
Yeah.
DDev has a browser sync as well, but I tried it for a half second and I was unable to get it working with the craft site that I was working on.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
know
I
that.
think-
I'm going to have to look into that.
Yeah, I haven't gotten it working either, but I
Yeah,
just use
but
the
also,
Mix. I have
I would like to say to anybody watching now or later in the future, the majority of the words that Sean just said in his whole long description right there, I understood most of them individually, but putting them together as a sentence, it was, I'm not going to go so far as to say imposter syndrome because, I could follow along, but I don't use those.
cron stuff. I don't know.
Well,
What
no, I know,
is.
I know cron, I know, like the cores, I
It's
know
not-
the
Oh, cores. That's what I meant.
cores.
Yeah. What the hell's cores?
That's when you like try to do the scripting on the different domain name or the
Right.
different URL and
Okay.
Course,
Cross
CORS. Cross Origin Resource Scripting.
origin. There you go.
Oh, cross origin. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but like the Laravel, the Mix, I've heard of Sprig. I've inherited a couple of projects that use it, but I don't know what it does, or I haven't had to update anything that uses it in a template. So there was a lot that you were talking about right now that was just like,
Isn't that something you can say one sentence and half the people in this conversation are sort of like,
yeah,
kind of got a lot of that. That's where web development is today.
that's totally what web development is.
Yeah, it totally is, because it's impossible for anybody to know everything. And it's like in our recent episode that we had with Kevin, we talked about that. It's just another example. We all do similar style projects, but we just had this situation where Amanda didn't know everything that I was talking about, which actually makes me feel good, because I think Amanda knows more than I do.
Sean's trying to take my crown. I don't like it.
I'm sure Amanda could rhyme off a few sentences that would confuse the two of us pretty quickly if she really wanted to. But.
I don't want to, because I don't want to be
I don't wanna
called
be-
on it. Okay,
I don't wanna be
but
mean
now
to
that we know that Sean is the smarty pants and has all of the answers, I have a question for Sean. Oh, are you done? Are you done talking about your excessive setup that's too complicated for anyone to understand?
Oh yes, I am all done.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So I am about to start a new project, and I've talked with the client, and the client has talked with my client, the designer, the agency, whatever, has talked to their client. Everyone is on board for doing craft. My question for you all is that, do you think that I should like jump in and start it now with Craft 4, which really was only released last year and is still quite new in itself? I'm still working on projects where I'm migrating from Craft 3 to Craft 4. Or should I hold off on a couple weeks, because isn't Craft 5 is the stable version of Craft 5 is supposed to drop at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So
there's a couple considerations here. If the client can't wait, then I would just stick with Craft 4. It's stable. Everything just works. Craft 5, there's a lot of ways that things are changing for the user experience, for content editors, as well as for development. New approaches for plugin, the way long form content is used. And I'm interested in it. I'm a little bit leery about some of it. So that's something I wouldn't want to build in Craft 4 and then migrate to this new approach afterwards if I didn't have to.
well,
So-
I'm almost wondering if I end up doing Craft 4, should I would try to keep in mind on the
Yeah,
migration
exactly.
to Craft 5 to like make that easier in the future. But it's like, I mean, like with most technology, I'm not usually like a first generation adapter.
I don't like to be early adopter with my clients either, but in this case,
Yeah.
because there's such a big change, I think there is some advantage. But the other consideration is, what plugins do you need for this site? If those plugins are not available right now during the alpha, or if they don't have a quick start, then I would just start with Craft 4. But
Yeah.
if possible, I would wait, because it's supposed to come out first quarter, and that means like 11 days.
Yeah.
It
So
should be
I
out
saw
by the end of the month, unless there's a delay.
No, I Googled it and I saw that like literally end of March. So like they're not even saying end of first quarter anymore. They're saying end of March.
Yeah, which is the
So-
end of first quarter.
Well, yeah, but
Okay. So anyways,
But-
next
but I-
Thursday.
To an actual-
I feel like it was a newer blog post that
All
literally said end of March
Yeah.
2024.
So that would be next Thursday, which is just over a week now.
Yeah.
I think if you have all of the plugins that you will need are going to be available, I would recommend waiting. I would recommend to the client. Mike, what do you think?
If you were to buy because I'm in a similar situation myself, if you were to buy a license for Craft 3 weeks from now, will it be Craft 5? Or can you buy a Craft 4 license still? Does anyone
Well,
know?
you can always get a lower license, I think. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that the license is just for craft. It's not like they give you a new license number when you
But
upgrade
they
from 3
let
to
you
4 or from 4 to
choose-
5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I-
So when you, I think that even if you go and look at the craft, I'm going to go find it, the craft install instructions right now, they say, install craft. Here, I'm even going to share my screen. This will be fun.
I think Amanda is,
Share
is right.
screen.
Advantage to buying earlier, the price is going up soon. I don't remember the exact date.
That's true too.
Is that to
so
say you
for
can
the,
get Craft 5 for the current price model? The lower price?
zoom in. So they even have right here in the instructions. I mean, it's like craft a minimum of 4, but that's just what it ends up having in the oh my God, it's not package.json, in the composer.json.
Project config.
In
Yeah.
project, yeah. Well, the project config composer.json. But if you got rid of the hat, if you got rid of the caret, it would just install craft 4. Like, I'm pretty sure you can do that at any time.
Doesn't the caret just mean
Any
Minimum.
version,
not a full version? Like 4 point
Yeah,
something will install?
it'll install any point version. If you remove the caret,
but it
it
won't
will
go to
install
5.
4.0 then. It
That
won't install 4.
that won't
yeah.
install Craft 5. That
No.
one
No.
right there.
No, it won't.
No.
So this is instructions for craft 4. And if you change it to 5, then it even says right here, documentation of an unreleased version. And down here, they've got, 5x dev. So notice how there's not the caret.
Yeah, but I wonder, like, if I were to buy a license 2 weeks from now and go about the process of installing Craft, surely it would default to version 5, right? I would have to manually change
I would
it
think
before.
after it's released.
Yeah,
I would think.
which is
Yeah, but
we just said
You're
next
buying
week,
a
right?
light. You're not. The thing is, if you're buying the license outside of the installation process, you're just buying a license for Craft. You could apply the license to any version.
Yeah.
Typically, you're gonna.
I'm just wondering what the process would do when you go about
Yeah.
installing it. Like
Like typically, you'll set up your install for your client, and then your client would go and make the purchase themselves, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
even from within the
here's
control
other
panel
question.
now.
What is so special about 5 that Sean you would recommend waiting? Like, is it that I know I went through the the newsletter and stuff and saw all the cool stuff, but I mean, is it what are you looking forward to in Craft 5 that you really want for your clients?
Okay, well,
Oh,
it's-
I got answers for that too.
okay, Amanda, you go first because I feel like I talked too much already.
So this is everything that I'm about to say. I'm basing on like preview videos that I've seen from craftquest.io.
That's exactly what I was going to talk about.
Yeah, and what I mean, all of us, I have copied from Mike, and Mike, I think you copied from Sean, the concept of this content builder that we use so that like in other content management systems like WordPress, when they've got like the more complex, the more advanced WYSIWYG editors where the client can like add a row that I want to be in 3 columns. And in this column, I want a text block. And in this column, I want whatever plugin. And in this column, I want, the contact form, whatever it is. That has always been kind of missing in Craft because I mean, Craft, which I haven't been against. I'm okay with like keeping it a little more simple. But that means that you need to like have like different fields for, row column 1, row column 2, row column 3, which was kind of, it was a hassle, but I get it. And then, like I said, I copied from Mike, who I think copied from Sean, the concept of this content builder. So then with the content builder, it's a matrix field. And then you can the user can select what type of matrix record they want for that section. Is it going to be full content? Is it going to be content image? Is it going to be like the carousel? Is it going to be accordion? Is it going to be like any option that we happen to set up? It works better. The clients are a lot happier with it, but I still find it kind of clunky and difficult to edit, even when I use a plugin that Mike suggested to me. What was it? A CP editor, like the control panel styler or something like that. I still find it difficult. So with Craft 5, what I've seen is that something like that is going to be a lot easier in that from like the entry, the client can kind of create sub entries based on different types. So you could have like just a 100% row entry type, and you could have like a content image entry type. And so then it's going to like list these sub entries, and you can have them listed old school, like a matrix, so it's actually got all of the content information in it, or you can have it look like cards. And then when the user clicks on the card, it's like this like sort of screen that only goes halfway across the page, and then the user can edit it right there. So I find visually, it's a little more separate distinction. I think it's going to be easier for the client that's like, oh, I'm working on this part right here.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning earlier about the content author experience is going to be a lot better. There's a lot of changes. So they have these slide outs for everything now. So, you've got a relationship, and you create your entry, and I need a relationship, but I haven't created that relationship. You don't have to open on another tab. You just hit the relationship and it slides in. You start typing. Oh, that one has a relationship. Slides in. You can go infinity deep.
It could become overwhelming, but I think that it's an interesting UI change.
Where my concerns come from is that it's the entrification of everything. So all your matrix blocks now are entries. And I understand how all that works, but all of your entry types are entries and stuff like that. And when I build a site, I have a number of entry types, and a lot of them, if I create a different channel, it's like just default entry type.
Yeah.
Well, that's all going to get renamed. What about naming conflicts? What if it decides to rename it to what I call the category that happens to have the same entry type?
I mean, I would think that would follow any kind of renaming convention, whereby if it already exists, it's not going to use it.
But the problem is then I have to go into the templates and make sure that everything matches as well. And it could be that sometimes you'll have more than one matrix, particularly on a site that you built before you got really deep into like using a matrix builder. What if you've got the same matrix block, but it's got slightly different fields and it's named the same? So I've got copy block and a copy block, and they have different options in it. Now, when I call the matrix in the news section and it pulls in the copy block, it's correct. But if I pull it from the article section, it's using a different matrix. Now it's expecting copy one, because I'm assuming they're just rename it sequentially. But now I'm not pulling copy one, so it's missing. So I feel like there's going to be a potential, especially with large sites and lots of content, that it's going to take a little bit of time in the templates to get to work. So that's my concern.
Yeah, my guess though is that the fine people at Pixel and Tonic who make craft, they have got their eye on that particular issue, and I'm sure that they're going to make it easier make it pretty easy for developers to upgrade. I mean, even going from like 3 to 4, and the instructions are like, okay, now you need to go to composer.json and you need to modify the craft version, and then you need to modify the version for each of the plugins. And at first I was like, holy shit, where am I going to find all that? But it's right there on that craft admin ready to upgrade. It's all listed right there.
Easy to do.
So I mean,
it seemed intimidating at first.
But I mean, they like I have to tell students this a lot. It's like if it's a JavaScript library, if it's a content management system, if it's literally anything, they want people to use it. They want it to be popular 100%. And well liked. So it's going to be half decently documented minimum, and they're going to try to make it easy for people to use.
The one last thing I want to bring up that I think is really, really cool is reusing fields inside your matrix, reusing blocks. So you create the block and you can use it in multiple matrices.
Yeah.
Or you have this copy thing. You could have inside the same block, you could use that copy field 4 times.
Yeah.
And it just automatically works. Like, there's so many cool things. I am looking forward to playing with it and upgrading my boilerplate and seeing how it works. Like,
Yeah.
I'm concerned, a little bit nervous, but I'm also excited at the same time.
In the show notes after we publish this, I'm going to put a link to the craftquest.io like preview videos that he's got.
Yes.
You two, please help me find the one that's like not part of his paid subscription.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's, I usually run into that paywall thing
Yeah,
because I'm not.
he's
paying
got
for
he's
that
got a
thing.
lot of
Probably
awesome
shouldn't.
content, and it makes me so angry because I'm so cheap. I can't pay for another subscription, and it's like, yeah, it's.
I got a lifetime subscription.
I know.
I got a really good deal way
I
before he was
know.
even advertising it.
I know.
Ryan and I are
Sorry,
already
guys.
talking about-
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Ryan
it's
Ireland,
funny
right? Yeah.
that we're talking. Sorry, we're funny. We're talking about the new craft and all that because I'm actually also in the process of deciding regarding a new project whether to use craft at all or maybe use Statamic, which is a CMS.
Oh,
that
cool.
I used to use.
I've
used it a few
also
times. I haven't used
touched it
in
a
while,
couple
though.
times.
And it's cheaper now that Kraft has raised their price. It's like half the price or something. Not that that's a huge deal because for a big project or whatever, it's not a big deal. But I was thinking about trying it out again, and I don't know.
What
it has its
what is pulling
advantages
you
as
towards
well.
it?
Yeah, tell us some advantages.
Okay, so the content can be version controlled because it doesn't have a database. So you can put all of the site content in your repo and have it available. Whenever you pull a repo, you get all the current content that the client has added. It's right there. And it kind of acts as a automatic backup feature, things like that. It comes with 41 default field types.
41
fields. Yeah,
That's a
different
lot.
types of fields, which means you don't need to use as many plugins. Like, I want a field type like this, but it's only available with this verb plugin or whatever it is. Chances are that's less needed with Statamic, I find. So that's really cool.
Well, and then we've been talking about that craft plugin that's been deactivated lately,
Link field.
Yeah.
the link field.
Right.
I'm going through that right now too.
Yeah.
I have a question
So,
for you
you know-
about
Oh, wait,
Statamic.
more for Mike. Tell us more. Sean, do
No,
your question.
but let's go with the questions. What's the
All
question?
right. So I know you're thinking about using it, so you may not be able to answer this question yet, but I really like the idea that your content is in the repo. But if your client is typing in new content on the live site, how does that get into the repo? When you save the entry, does it make a commit and push it back to the repo?
Yes, that's
Oh.
my understanding.
That is really cool.
That's cool.
It has a feature called, I think they used to call it Spock, and it was built in. It was like a Git. I think it's on the thing. Git built in or whatever is one of their features. So yeah, I think that is how it works. And of course, you could control whether or not it actually deploys and stuff like that, because you don't want to make changes locally and then hit push and deploy, and then your demo content is in the public site. You don't want that. So I think you can control all that. But my understanding is, yeah, you can set it up so when your client adds content, it automatically gets pushed into the repo. I could be
That
wrong
is-
about that, but I think so.
That is a
cool.
really cool thing, because then you just make a git pull and you're not dealing with like database issues or database syncing.
Yeah, it's super fast, and anyway, thinking about it. But yeah, the other thing is I don't like, back in the days of Expression Engine, I used to be like, it's the only CMS I would ever use, and I got bitten a few times where it's like, well, I don't really know anything else. If the client's not down with that CMS, then I'm kind of screwed. I'd rather have a bit of a range. Like, I can do
Yeah.
craft stuff, I can do Statamic,
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Most of my work these days is with agencies and they do crafts, so I don't have opportunities to look at things like Statamic or Kirby or any of these other CMSs that we've talked about in the past.
Yeah, and that's my other issue is I don't know if I want to devote the time, because it does
To
take time
learning.
to sort of relearn it. And
Yeah.
then I'm like,
Yeah, I hear you.
anyways. And quickly, I think we only have 5 minutes left here if we're going to do this half hour. But I have another question for you guys. I have a client, not a client yet, but they're in talks with hiring me for like a maintenance contract. and they have a site that's on Craft. Someone built it, and they're not too happy with how it was built, and they kind of want me to clean it up. But apparently this person I'm speaking with, that person's boss at this organization, has asked, why are we even using Craft? Why don't we use something like WordPress? There's so many more developers available who know WordPress than know Craft, which is true. It's a fair point. And my answer was, if you want to go with WordPress, fine. Whatever. Lots of people use it. I gave all the standard things about I don't think it's as easy to use as you think. I think you're committed to a theme much more than you would be with another custom CMS like Craft, blah, blah, blah. But wondering what you guys think about that particular argument that there's more developers available if you do need work. Do you have an answer for that?
There are.
Well, I think
Far
it is a fact because it is the powers like 40% of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that most of those developers are actual developers. A good chunk of them are theme pushers where they just drag and drop or push themes around. And if that works for you and your clients, great. But if you need a bespoke site, you need to make WordPress can do it. I'm not saying WordPress can't, but you need to make sure that your developer can do it. And how are you going to vet them? There's so many. Craft, you can find it. I'm almost done. I'll just be like 10 seconds.
Yeah, okay.
Craft,
Sorry.
there's the professionals network or partners network. You can find partners on there. I'm sorry. I just really think that there's a lot more you can do with it. And then finally, Craft or WordPress, because it powers the 40% of the internet, it's a target. It's a security target.
Yes.
It's like, I use Windows, but I'm aware that Windows is a target because it powers most computers. So I have antivirus. You need to be aware that WordPress is a target. You're more likely to get hacked.
Or even just the attempts of hacks.
Yeah. I'm not saying Craft can't be hacked. I'm just saying it's much less likely.
Yeah. WordPress, it always comes down to security. And because of all the extra plugins that you typically need, it's going to come down to page speed.
Oh, pluginitis.
Plugins.
God, yes.
Oh my God, all the
I
plugins
did
for
mention
everything.
that too, yeah.
And that's the without plugins.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like originally WordPress was for blogging. Full stop the end. And then eventually they added pages. And then eventually they but really that's it. Core WordPress. That's all it is. If you want to do anything with like additional posts, you need a plugin. If you want to do anything with custom fields in that additional post type, you need a plugin. If you want to do like literally everything else is a plugin. And if all of those plugins were made by the same company, were made by the same group, were made by WordPress.org, it would be a little bit different. Like now that because we've worked with Craft so much, we know that Verb is a good plugin author. We know that Put Your Lights On is a good plugin author. We know that Pixel and Tonic, who makes Craft, is a good plugin author. So I feel like there's just not the same reliability with WordPress.
There is issues with using third-party plugins, and that's with any system. And earlier in the episode or the show, you mentioned the link field plugin, which is now abandoned. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, Verb has a migration path to a similar plugin. Yeah. And then there's in Craft GitHub, there's a big thread where people are pushing Craft to make a native plugin for it because it is a feature that should be native. And one of the big concerns I have with any sort of build is I try to keep my plugin usage to a minimum for just this reason. And Mike mentioned 41 field types for Statamic. And that means like no plugins that are related to fields as far as I can tell. That makes me want to use Statamic.
Yeah.
The fact that everything in WordPress requires a plugin and most of them are third-party developers, and then you have to deal with conflicts between them, like potential conflicts. And what if your one plugin that's crucial to your site doesn't get updated because that developer disappears, gets hit by a bus or whatever? Now you're stuck on an older version of WordPress that is going to become more and more of a security issue the longer it's stuck like that. So WordPress is great if you don't need it. If you don't need a lot of plugins.
Maybe use WordPress for what it's good for.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, and there you can still do a lot of cool things with WordPress, absolutely. But if you're trying to do something that's like really, really custom, really specific, this is exactly what I want it to do, I would.
Yeah,
And and with Craft, you've got so many more options with like, I specifically want my URLs to look like this, as opposed to some, half-rate WordPress plugin that's like, oh, you want products? Well, you've got to have products for the URL. And then for the categories, it's got to be products_categories. Unless you get in and start doing a bunch of stuff to function.php.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan of CMSs in general that are theme-based. I like bring your own code, things like Expression Engine, Craft. I know Statamic is bring your own code. I think Drupal, one of the open source ones, is also not really theme-oriented, but I'm not sure about that. That kind of stuff. That's what I think is better. You're not as stuck in somebody else's idea of a good idea.
Kevin's watching us. He says, what about Webflow?
Haven't used it.
I've never used it.
Haven't used it. I've heard a lot of good things about it.
I've heard good things about it too.
Drag and drop type thing, right? You like drag elements on.
Yeah,
it's like very visual.
Yeah, I still have a little bit of PTSD from using like Dreamweaver, and that was all. Oh, it's drag and drop, make web pages, and the code was awful.
Yeah. I used that before I knew what code was, so I think that might be the target audience, right?
Yeah.
Although for Webflow, as I understand it, you can code some things, like you can actually write some JavaScript in there as well. So that's why there are Webflow developers.
Yeah, but then you're like very limited to their platform, and it's a subscription, right?
Yeah, it's a subscription, and you're kind of locked in. It's like Wix or things like or Squarespace, where there's no way to export your content. Like once you're on there, they're not going to make it easy for you to I want to leave Webflow and start a Wix site. No, you're locked in, or you're rebuilding from scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that this is a good point to wrap her up. What do you guys think?
I agree.
All right, listeners, thanks for listening. Cue the music, Mike.
Talk to you next in a couple of weeks, and
bye.
Podcast. Subscribe.
Bye.